Welcome back to my channel, Life and Library of Prufrock, and this video is going to be another episode of Philosophy with Prufrock. So this is going to be a long video, so without any further ado, let's get into the video. So the topic of this video is going to be madness. We are going to discuss about madness, and there are two books that I thought would be the most appropriate in talking about madness. So the first book that I have chosen is AntiEdepus by Deleuze and Guattari, and the other book is A Philosophy of Madness by Walter Custos. Now, while I was preparing for this video, I realized that if I talk about two books in one go, in one video, this is going to be a long one and I would be in a constant hurry to talk about things, and also kind of anxious that I don't miss out on any point or analysis. So what I've decided is that this video is going to be a discussion on this one, which is our first book, and the upcoming video will be on this one. And then we can sort of associate both the books and see that if there is any kind of similarity, although I know that there are kind of similarities in this book because both of them has talked about the similar strata or the line of politics, social scenarios, and obviously madness. So then let's get into the first book, which is AntiEdepus by Deleuze and Guattari. If you're not aware of this book, let me give you a brief introduction of the writers. Now, Deleuze was a French philosopher and Guattari was a French psychoanalyst. And there are a lot of works that they have compiled together, and I believe each of them are equally critical and complicated. Now, while I was a student, an enrolled student of literature, there were quite a few times where I decided that I should pick this book up, but I could never gather the courage because I was told, I was warned, and I also had done a bit of reading on them, which stopped me from reading this book because I was unsure that I could understand or decode what this book talked about. But finally, a few months back, I have gathered the courage to get into this. And yes, I took a lot of time, probably a few months, to deconstruct and understand and realize what all has been said in this book. Now, there are a lot of ideas. We're going to talk about each of them one after the another. The primary idea that is mentioned in this book is the relationship between desire and the socius or the social structure. Now, as human beings, we are not able, or we are always unable, it is not in our ability to live as an individual being. We always have to have a relationship with something else or someone else in order to create an identity or to have a meaning of our existence. So that is the primary idea of this book, which takes us to the first and foremost idea of this book, that is body without organs. Now, what is body without organs? There is another critical definition that has been given, which is said that body without organs, the body is referred to as a deterritorialized socius. Now, what is deterritorialized socius? Deterritorialized socius is meant, Deleuze and Guattari has meant that this is us. By us, we mean our ancestors, like the social being, the human being, which is also called as the book refers to them as the prototype of man, that is our ancestors. So the social being. Now, social being without any kind of relationship with the geographical location that they are placed in, or the other human beings at the time, is called the deterritorialized body. which brings to the concept that what is organs, because it says body without organs. Now, organs is the organization or the organizing principles. To easily explain this, I can say that organizing principles are like capitalism is a kind of an organizing principle, which are the set of rules that sort of form a structure that tends to bind us. Now, we fall prey to these organizing principles and give ourselves an identity, which also makes us, now there is a transformation that happens while we are getting inclined towards this organizing principles. That is, the social being or us, our ancestors were deterritorialized body, and with the influence of this organizing principles, whichever suits us better, or perhaps we are bound to follow. Now, one can be bound to follow socialism because their country follows it, or capitalism because that is the general structure. So that influences us to be a territorialized being, because it gives us a territory, a place, an identity that binds us, that restricts us, that gives us an identity or perhaps meaning to our existence. Now, I would like to read a excerpt from this book, which already talks about body without organs, and it says, the body is the body. It is all by itself and has no need of organs. The body is never an organism. Organisms are the enemies of body. So this is the deterritorialized being. Now it further reads as, we are of the opinion that what is ordinarily referred to as primary repression means precisely that it is not a counter catharsis, but rather this repulsion of desiring machines by the body without organs. I would like to read another quote, and it says, but in and of itself, the paranoid machine is merely an avatar of the desiring machine. It is a result of the relationship between the desiring machine and the body without organs, and occurs when the latter can no longer tolerate these machines. Now, these quotes bring us to the second prominent idea of this book, which is the desiring machine. Now, what exactly has been meant as desiring machine? Now, as I said, that human beings are beings that cannot be seen alone. We cannot stay alone, and we need a sort of relative relationship to somebody or something, some material, some location, some name, to give us identity. We kind of need a relative existence. Our existence is never alone or not without anything else. It always has a relationship with something. So now, desiring machines are these organizing principles, and we as human beings are always inclined to them. Now, how can you suppose these desires, how can we identify these desires? These desires are residing in general structure of our existence. For example, our desire for food, or a house, or any transportation, owning a private car perhaps. Now, these are the material desires that every human being has when they are placed in these organizing principles. Now, this also reminds me of the Charvaka philosophy, which is an Indian philosophy that talks about materialism and finds it as the ultimate truth, to find happiness in material, and everything exists in the material world. This brings me to another quote that I would like to read, and it says, machines attach themselves to the body without organs as so many points of disjunction between them, which is an entire network of new synthesis is now woven, marking the surface off into coordinates like a grid. Now, while we are talking about desire, now Deleuze and Guattari always mentions and warns us that while we are talking about desire or realizing one's desire, it has to be kept in mind that desires are not our own. We are always driven by the desires that our organizing principles or the organization we are in is allowing us to do. For example, if I am living in a capitalistic society or a mindset, then my desires are obviously going to be inclining with the ideology of my surrounding, my existence. So that has been the point. Now there is a thought that has invoked me. So whatever my desires are they my own desire? Am I desiring for them, or am I so normalized in a social structure that I'm living in that they are asking me to ask for those things? The next idea that has been mentioned in the book is scrambling the code. Now, this is my favorite part because code here means language. And language is the factor that will connect us to our second book, which is the Philosophy of Madness. Now, what is told in this book about codes is that code is the language. Now, language is also a structure that we are born into. We are thrown into after birth. We have to be in that structure. If I am not communicating in this language, which is the English language here, perhaps I won't be able to reach a certain number of people because they are only able to understand English. And so this makes our code of communication, that is the only source or the only way that I can make or express myself, express my desire, perhaps get the things done, communicate. And communication is necessary because communication is the initial, the surface of forming a relationship with a place, a thing, not a thing, a place, or the place. By place I mean obviously the people of the place. So that is how code is significant. Now, why has Deleuze and Guattari talked about code here? Because they have also mentioned, which is another significant element of this book, that is schizophrenia. Now, schizophrenics are the ones, according to Deleuze and Guattari, who are able to scramble this code, because they cannot be classified in the normalized or the compact structure, the box of language. The language that I'm speaking has a meaning that the language is conveying. For example, I'm saying I read this book. This is a language that communicates with you and explains to you this almost the similar meaning, or perhaps the similar meaning. But to a schizophrenic, perhaps the meaning is disrupted or distorted in between. Now, talking about schizophrenia brings us to the next significant element of this book, which is capitalism. Now, capitalism has, according to Deleuze and Guattari, has been working in a few steps, in few layers. The first is capitalism tends to deterritorialize you and then forms a code and territorializes you, but this process is done in a brutal fashion. Now, I'll give you a real life example of this aspect. That is, people migrating to another geographical location or a town or another country for the purpose of better lifestyle, better jobs, more wealth, a better salary. It can be anything else, anything of that sort. Now it says that you don't have a language, then your organizing principles that you are put into makes you form a language, which is then after this, capitalism decodes your language, that is, creates a necessity. For example, you are living in a city and you realize that to get this job or to get a better job that will pay you more and suffice your necessities, you need to get relocated to a better to a place that you think is better than your current one. So this is the decoding of the language, and then you go and reside in another place for that job, which makes you you're deterritorialized here, and then when you go and settle in another place, that is your reterritorialization. So this is how the code is constructed, deconstructed, and again reconstructed. This is what capitalism does to a human being's desire, according to Deleuze and Guattari. Now, talking about capitalism and schizophrenia has brought us to the most significant point of this book, which is capitalism versus schizophrenia. Now, I have probably seen this in a video, this explanation in a video. I am unable to remember where. If I find it, I am going to link it in the description. But I'm sorry if I'm not able to find that video again. But it said that Zizek had explained how capitalism is the limit, the benchmark. It is the final code. But schizophrenia has set an upper and a lower limit for capitalism, because capitalism has decoded a language, a structure that nobody is willing to question, or there is a sort of an innate agreement to it, as if you have surrendered to capitalism because there has been no other option. You are unable to see anything else, and you are not able to deviate from that ideology, and you have submitted to it. But the schizophrenia is one such instance that denies, or rather completely denies, the code that has been presented by capitalism. So Deleuze and Guattari in this book says that it is the insane who are the only sane in this world. So that is about madness in this book. Now I would like to read an excerpt from this book, and this excerpt is on capitalist representation, and it says, writing has never been capitalism's thing. Capitalism is profoundly illiterate. The death of writing is like the death of God or the death of the Father. The thing was settled a long time ago, although the news of the event is slow to reach us, and there survives in us the memory of extinct signs with which we still write. The reason for this is simple. Writing implies a use of language in general, according to which graphism becomes aligned to the voice, but also overcodes it and induces a fictitious voice from on high that functions as a signifier. The arbitrary nature of the thing designated, the subordination of the signified, the transcendence of the despotic signifier, and finally its consecutive decomposition into minimal elements within a field of immanence uncovered with the withdrawal of despot. All this is evidence that writing belongs to imperial despotic representation. Once this is said, what exactly is meant when someone announces the collapse of the Gutenberg galaxy? Another most important element of this book, which is also the title of this book, is AntiEdepus. And Deleuze and Guattari talks about Freud's idea of Oedipal complex, and they have sort of deconstructed or broken the eternal idea of the structure, the triad structure of reproduction. Now, Freud has proposed this idea that there's an Oedipal complex, which is also referred to the Greek play Oedipus Rex. Talking about Oedipal complex as the only drive that there is in a human being was rejected by Deleuze and Guattari, because it talked about Freud talked about castration and the anxiety that a male child has. Now you have to be aware of the story. I'm not talking about the story of Oedipus Rex here, but Freud has proposed that castration brings out the male anxiety. But Deleuze and Guattari points out that this idea has to be rejected because it automatically makes women the lack. And they sort of reject this one-dimensional idea and says that this idea is completely male-oriented and there is no place for women's existence in this idea. So they reject it, and then they propose that before the drive, the Oedipal drive, or the libidinal drive, there is a desire that we human beings have towards our organizing principles, which is the initial point, which is the origin of existence. Now, this is it on this book. This episode ends here, and we are done talking about the first book. We have discussed a lot about the social structure, the sanity, the insanity, what codes are to be denied, what codes are sane, what codes are insane, and what madness might look like in a social structure. I hope you liked it, and please mention in comment section if you disagree to any of my some summarization of this book, if any point you would like to add on or contradict, because I am admitting that I've had a really tough time in understanding all of the concepts of this book. So if you would like to contradict or add on to something that I've missed out, please mention in the comment section. And in the next video, we will be talking about this book. This has been an absolute gigantic read, and a very enlightening one. So the next episode of Philosophy with Prufrock is going to be on philosophy of madness, the experience of psychotic thinking. Till then, bye-bye, and if you like the video, please like, share and subscribe, and also mention what kind of videos you would like to see next. Till then, bye-bye. This book is available on Amazon, and it's priced 800, but by the time I would be uploading this video, the price might have changed. If you would like to get this copy from Amazon, there's a link mentioned in my description. You can use the link and purchase your copy. Thank you.